Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik from Figured Out Productions. The following video is a video of some kind, and I hope you enjoy it.
Hey guys, it's Adam here, and today we're going to be talking about this. This is a package that comes from Spain. And potential full disclosure here, this is going to sound really dumb. I don't remember if I bought this or if this was sent to me for free for the purposes of review. I know that's stupid, but I swear there's a logic to it. But if I did get it for free, it came from Retro Sumus, which, well, either way it came from them, but in one scenario I bought it, and I just don't remember if I did or not. They were the developers behind this game. So what is it? What are we even talking about? Let's open it up and take a look. This is a brand new Sega Dreamcast game. I'm going to get this out of the way because it always has to come up. For people who don't know, yes, the Sega Dreamcast does still get brand new games every once in a while. However, it's not done by Sega or other major companies. It's always done by independent developers and publishers who typically have their own reasons to do it. I won't go over all those reasons, but the best one is when they have some sort of passion to make a game for the Dreamcast, and that's exactly what happened in this case. This is Xenocider. This is the long box full DVD style, and then this appears to be the jewel case North American style. So, okay, let's talk about that. I know I look a little confused, but that's because I'm trying to remember if I bought it or not. I must have bought at least one, because there's two copies here. There are other versions. There's like a steelbook version, and then there's like a PAL version. There's all sorts of different stuff. Even though it is actually a region-free release, it's purely cosmetic. But anyway, so yeah, the basic history with this game is that back in 2014, the guys at Retro Sumus decided, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, it's not Samus, that much I'm sure of. But back in 2014, these guys announced a Kickstarter saying, hey, we want to make this Dreamcast game. And it was like, by far, the most ambitious independent Dreamcast game ever produced. Now, you must understand that back in the day, Dreamcast games were always in 3D, or at least most of the time they were, because they were done by major companies with massive multi-million-dollar budgets. The independent scene is usually done by a handful of guys, or even just one person at a time, just kind of making a project for their own reasons, usually with a shoestring budget, if any budget at all. Therefore, you don't typically get big 3D, adventures. So Retro Sumus actually wanted to change that, and they decided to create a Kickstarter for this game, and they asked for $100,000. Now, $100,000 for a video game, not a lot of money to develop one, but for an independent game would have been huge. However, they did not get it. I don't remember what it ended at. I do know that I backed it. However, since it didn't succeed, it did fail, they ultimately couldn't go through that route. So then, shortly after that, they decided to announce they were just going to make the game anyway. So that's why I think there's a chance I might have actually bought a copy, and then they also just gave me an extra copy for free, which if they did, thank you very much. But anyway, so the reason they announced it, I asked them, like, how did that happen? Like, if you were going to get money for it in one way, how did you do it without the money? And they basically said, if we had had the money, we could have just quit our jobs for a while and worked on it all the time until it was done, and it probably would have been done by like 2016. Whereas since we couldn't do that, we had to just do it on weekends or on our copious free time, whatever. And that's why it's now done in 2021, making this the first new Dreamcast game of 2021. Very cool, and it's a good way to start off. Now, I like the artwork. As I understand it, the artwork was actually designed by a dude who does a lot of comic books and like stuff you would know, like some Transformers comics, and I guess it was inspired by the X-Men specifically, which is pretty neat. The music in this game was done by a composer who actually I think was nominated for an Academy Award at one point, believe it or not. So like there's some legit talent behind this, seriously. And then the guys, I asked them like what was the reason they even wanted to make it, because clearly it wasn't to make money. So what was the reason behind making it? And apparently they wanted to just pay homage to Yu Suzuki's work. They love the man, they love his work. And funny enough, this was announced a year before Shenmue 3 was even announced, so it's back before Yu Suzuki was like really super relevant again. But yeah, anyway, so very cool. But yeah, I'm looking forward to checking it out. Now, it's my understanding that the biggest inspiration in this game was Space Harrier, and based on the footage and just even the early clips we ever saw, that seems to be the case, but I of course want to deep dive into it more. Let me go ahead and open it up and show it to you guys. Now, this, obviously I have both the jewel case and the DVD version. I don't know if that we'll find out when we get in there, see if there's any like bonus music CDs or something like that. I think there is a version of it that does have music CDs, but I legit not sure about that. But either way, I like that I have both, because I like that I have a version that can fit in with the normal Dreamcast set, and then at the same time, I also like that most indie Dreamcast games come out with DVD artwork. But anyway, so here's the CD style. Now, comes with a manual and a full printed disc. I should have mentioned that before. Independent games, they've been doing this since 2003. It's actually weird to think about, but the Dreamcast indie scene has been around almost 20 years. Almost 2 decades. And what's an indie game is one that's actually published on a disc, like a pressed disc in a factory, has nice artwork, and is sold at some level of retail. Whereas like a homebrew game would just be some guy made it at home and he lets you download the files and you can burn it on your own or whatever. These are not burned on CDRs. Like I said, these are made in factories. But yeah, here's the manual. You know, just talking about the game. It says, it actually says inspired by classics like Space Harrier and Sin and Punishment. Sin and Punishment was an N64 Japanese exclusive, although there is a Wii version of that was released here. It talks about some of the on-rail shooters that inspired it, like Galaxy Force, and there's a little bit of Shinobi. Mostly they took their inspiration from Sega. Incidentally, Sega obviously had nothing to do with this, but I can tell you from talking to people at Sega, their official position is we don't care, but private they're like, that's pretty cool. Because that's fine. They can be totally cool with it. But yeah, the disc, just like I said on the bottom, just a standard disc. And then when you look at the artwork behind there, that's very clearly inspired by Space Harrier. Very cool. So we'll take a look at the DVD version as well. Open this up. And inside we have... Well, the disc popped out. Oh, okay, so the disc, this is, all right, this one has the music CD. On this side, you have the same exact disc style. It's not any different, but it also includes a bonus music CD. I'm looking forward to listening to that because, again, I've heard a lot of good things. Then in this case, you have a full-size manual, which is actually just basically one piece of paper, but all the information that was on this can fit on it in just one page. So yeah, the same basic style, depending on your preference if you like the DVD style or the CD style. But I guess keep in mind that the DVD style does have the bonus music CD. Very cool. Now, I just kind of noticed this on here. It has this line that says, the first 3D game for the Dreamcast in over 15 years. Hate to be a nitpicker, but that's not actually accurate. It was accurate when they started this project. This is still the most ambitious 3D content for the Dreamcast produced since Sega stopped supporting it. However, there have actually been 2 indie Dreamcast games that have come out that are both 3D since this was announced. The first was 4x4 Jam. I did a video on it. It's a racing game. And then the even more ambitious one after that was Arcade Racing Legends, which just came out last year. I did a video on that as well. Those are 3D games, but they are racing games. This is like a full open kind of adventure type of game. So yeah, this would be... They're all 3D, but this would be a very different type of 3D, if that makes any sense.
All right, so now we're running here with some gameplay after I filmed the prior part of the video. Now, there's a lot to say on this game. Frankly, it's an incredibly complicated game with a lot to offer, so let's get into it here. Now, the first thing I should have mentioned in the earlier part of the video, not to get this game confused with a different Dreamcast game called Xenocider. I did a video on that a while ago. It's kind of weird that out of nowhere we had 2 indie games. Neither of one done by Josh Prod, who's like the predominant, Dreamcast indie guy, both with the name Xenu, only like a year apart from each other. But yeah, this is not Xenocider, this is Xenocider. So just make sure you remember that going into it so you get the right game, because they're both incredibly different. Both good, but very different. Like, you see that? You pick up a little Dreamcast icon. So in gameplay, you have to beat the level to basically get 1 point, and the other point you pick up is every time you find a little Dreamcast that's popping around. I know this game also exists on PC and like 3DS, and I don't know if it's different on those, if instead of a Dreamcast you pick up like a PC or a 3DS, but anyway, so this is a basic layout of how your average level works, at least in these type of like, hoverboard type of modes. You go through, you shoot at stuff, you have those crosshairs, and you have to move those around and fire at targets, and then eventually you get to some sort of boss. I gotta be honest, I felt somehow that at least in these particular modes, it felt like I was supposed to be using a light gun or something, because like the crosshair section just felt like I don't know, it wasn't the most cooperative thing, yet in like the Space Harrier sections, which I showed you footage of earlier, I never had this problem. But I know the game also supports arcade sticks and stuff like that, so maybe it would work better with certain controllers. Now I want to bring that up too in a minute, because I think that that's kind of significant, is what type of controller you use for it. But before we do, I want to throw out a couple other little technical notes here. One, I am recording this with the DC Digital or DC HDMI as well as an M Classic to go ahead and enhance it, but it is a very clean, good-looking game for what it is. Now here's where like you get into the game and you can upgrade your platform. Now what I was just talking about where you have those little points, you can use them right here on this particular screen to upgrade your shield, your nukes, your shooting, your armor, your lives, etc. And every time you beat a level, you get at least 1 or 2 if you find a that random Dreamcast. Honestly, the game I found to be very challenging a lot of the time, so upon repeat playings I would typically boost my shields just to give me the best chance of actually surviving. But basically once you make those decisions, you go ahead and you can start the game on a particular planet, and there's a description of what the planet is like and gives you some information, and then you get these 2 different route options. Now honestly, this really reminded me of Star Fox 64. If you remember Star Fox 64, you were floating around a series of planets, and each one, you kind of had 2 options, whether you realized it or not. This is kind of just giving you upfront, hey, there's 2 different paths, take your pick. And because of that, you end up with a wide variety of gameplay. Once again, like Star Fox 64, you would have the space levels, you would have the on-planet levels, sometimes you would have like underwater levels, and that's really how this always felt to me. In this case, what you're looking at is the Route 2 of the same section I just failed at a minute ago. And so you can try your hand at either one and see which one you're better at. Now, eventually I got better at this, but man, I gotta be honest, this was super hard initially. At first I was playing with a standard Dreamcast controller and I wasn't making much progress. Then I switched over to the Retro Fighters controller, and I still wasn't making much progress. But then I realized the Retro Fighters controller might be my best friend because I went ahead and activated the turbo mode. And as soon as I did that, the game became a lot more playable. I mean, not playable, just easier. The game is incredibly challenging to me, at least these particular modes, and it mostly boils down to ability to avoid hitting while also being able to successfully hit your target. It's essentially like shoot-'em-up logic, except on a 3D plane, like from this over-the-shoulder kind of angle, and I don't know, man, like, it takes some getting used to. It's good, do not misunderstand me. It's just that it's kind of a lot for the senses. I felt like sensory overload a lot of the time, in a good way. It's just a game I have to get used to, and as you can tell, since I did actually make some progress, I did end up getting a little bit better at this. But that would be the thing I warn you about going into it, is this game is best suited with a controller that contains a turbo function. That made it like so much easier for me to actually be able to play. But that said, it really did remind me, even though they never mention it anywhere, it really reminded me of Star Fox 64 a lot, because you end up going through these levels, you have these very unique bosses, each with these kind of like patterns or whatever, and you're going through a planet system with multiple routes, even though they never cite that. In fact, I'll cut out of the audio here in a bit and just let you listen to the music and some of the gameplay, but you'll even see there's like a space section and everything. Like it really just reminds me of that. And then after that, you'll see this underwater section. But unfortunately, like, even though I was able to get a couple of levels and stuff, I was just not that good at it, man. But I should also mention, there are things like achievements in this game. There's like all sorts of random unlockables. Yeah, here's the space section I was talking about. So this game has a wide variety of content, and so you're not likely to get bored, I'll tell you that. It's just that you might get a little stressed out unless you have a turbo function. I can't stress that enough, man. But yeah, it's pretty cool. So I'll catch up with you guys at the end. In the meantime, just enjoy some of the gameplay and enjoy some of the music. back here, and I think that's a pretty unique design for a monster. And again, it really does look like it's something right out of Star Fox 64. I really appreciate that. But unfortunately, I bet you were expecting me to win, weren't you? How foolish were you? Anyway, big shout out again to Retro Sumus. If you guys like this game, I'll put a link in the description. You can go ahead and check it out and buy it. Thank you guys very much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe. Check out all the social media stuff in the description. Thank you very much, and I'll see you all later.